and another green arrow, but let's see my early transfer plans for FPL Game Week 11. Okay, so before we look at how my team done in Game Week 10, make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel, because YouTube analytics told me 88% of people that watch this channel are not subscribed. Shambles. So make sure you guys change that. Let's start with Nick Pope, and I'll be honest, the West Ham Newcastle game probably caught me off guard the most in terms of Nuno and Potter previously got a lot of criticism by West Ham fans for how they set up the team. The balance wasn't correct. The managers weren't playing the players in the correct positions, and that completely changed when I saw the lineup. Callum Wilson, a recognised number 9, was playing. The midfield balance with Mateus Fernandes, Paqueta, Freddie Potts, who was brilliant that game, was a lot better. Wan-Bissaka, Juve playing in their natural roles. And I saw that lineup and I was like, okay, Newcastle are in for a game. And listen, they lost 3-1. I know a couple of people in the FPL community said, listen, West Ham, they probably didn't deserve to score 3. They scored, let's say, low XG chances. If you guys saw the game, West Ham had plenty of chances to win that game. They deserve to win that game. And as a Nick Pope owner, very, very frustrating. I'll talk about them a bit more when I talk about Waltermard, because obviously he is definitely someone that I want to discuss. But for now, listen, 3-1 defeat for Newcastle, very disappointing. But someone who I can never be disappointed by are Timber and Gabriel. Another clean sheet for Arsenal, which we knew was going to come. And Gabriel got DEFCON. Just for, like, I don't think people realize how crazy it is getting DEFCON against Burnley. Gabriel now is only the second centre-back to hit DEFCON against Burnley. Like, it was something that before, when people were talking about captaincy, I was like, no chance Gabriel hits DEFCON. Like, generally, I gave him 0 chance. And he actually hit it. And he obviously got an assist. But just something I want to say. When I say I wouldn't captain defenders, listen, fair play if you went there with Gabriel. He got 12 points, even though Erling Haaland did outscore it. But more importantly, the chance, like I said this, I feel like corners are very unpredictable in a way. In terms of also not just aiming for Gabriel in corners. Like if we look Califury gets his head onto a lot of corners. At the start of the season, it almost seemed that Timber was really involved in terms of like the set piece movement, for example. And Gabriel this game against Burnley had 0 shots. That's what I'm saying. Like corners are not as predictable as people think. That's just something I want to say. Anderson, 6-pointer, again, very, very nice. The only frustrating thing is, we know Anderson is a DEFCON monster. Wolves got the red card quite early on. And after that, listen, when teams are, we've seen it, when teams are playing with 10 men or when they're not playing with a recognised number 9, it pretty much ruins your DEFCON potential. But listen, a clean sheet, can't really complain considering the fact that I needed Anderson for this week. Otherwise, I would have had to play Joe Rodon. And that was one of the main reasons why I had Anderson in my wildcard over Richards. But for now, Anderson 6-pointer, can't really complain. Very, very good performance from Fulham. Let's have a look at how my midfield done. Okay, so now let's have a look at the midfield. And it was an absolute shambles from everyone. Listen, Semenyo, I do feel like Semenyo during this game, especially the second half, was struggling with the injury. Obviously, he got a knock to his lower back in the first half. And I feel like his movement weren't fully correct throughout the game, especially in the second half. Like you saw, I think Sky Sports panned the cameras over to him when they were warming up for the second half. And you can see Semenyo was slightly struggling. So I do think that kind of did affect him. The performance by Manchester City, by the way, phenomenal. But listen, I still feel like Bournemouth had a couple chances where if the final pass was better, just a bit more quality in the final third, they could have caused City a bit more problems. But listen, City, deserved winners, incredible performance. Bournemouth did not deserve to get anything from that game. Enzo Fernandez, 2-pointer, very, very frustrating. Because if you watch the game, Chelsea were extremely, extremely dominant. Tottenham were poor. They created an extra 0.05. A lot's going wrong for Thomas Frank right now in the final third, where you can see he's pretty much relying on Kudus. Kudus produced something out of nothing because the attacking dynamics are not correct. And obviously Tottenham fans were very, very frustrated with that after the game. You could hear the boos. But listen, Chelsea, very good performance, very dominant. And I always say this, Chelsea in the bigger games, Enzo Maresca just always seems to get it right. I feel like the Gusto James dynamic always works in these bigger games, but it's the lesser games that I have a bit more concern with. Regarding Enzo Fernandez and his positioning, he was playing as, let's say, a number 10. But if you watch the game, he was pretty much on the final line. And that allowed João Pedro to drop a bit deeper and get a lot of space. Which, for example, the third shot that he had in the first half when the ball came across, Enzo Fernandez was pretty much occupying the centre-backs. And that gave João Pedro the space to drop a bit deeper and have that shot up. So I feel like that dynamic worked really, really well for Chelsea during this game. But listen, he blanked. He still was involved. He probably could have scored with a header during that game. Listen, frustrating, and very, very frustrating. Saka, again, he's probably the one that I'm most frustrated with out of any single midfielder. Because if anyone watched the highlights of the game or watched the game, Saka had 2 big chances in the first half where he should have scored. Especially for a player of Bukayo Saka's quality. How he didn't get any points from that game, Listen, so frustrating. And this is another one where I think long term, I'm not too sure because Declan Rice now is the second highest scoring midfielder. Do you want to downgrade Saka to Declan Rice? Well, I say downgrade in terms of price and then maybe move funds around. Maybe that could be a possibility because Declan Rice is obviously getting the goals. He obviously has a set piece threat that obviously Saka Rice as well, even though I think Rice's delivery is better. It could be a very interesting option and something that I am considering in the future. Saar, again, listen, he blanked. And I keep saying this to Saar. It seems like in the Premier League games, he's not doing anything. Midweek games in Europe or in the League Cup, he's scoring. I feel like that's Saar summed up. And I own Saar a large proportion of last season as well in FPL. And I felt like I never got his FPL returns. So it is slightly frustrating. But listen, as I said, Palace's fixtures over the next couple games are very nice. I'm still happy owning him, especially for the price tag. Can't really complain. He's not going to return every single game. Listen, what can you do? Now the attack, and let's start with Jean-Philippe Mateta, who was my transfer in this week. And it's nice when you bring in the player and they return straight away. Of course, it was slightly frustrating that João Pedro scored, and he probably could have got a lot more points if you guys watched the game. But listen, Mateta returned 9.9, very nice. And it was a game where Crystal Palace probably didn't create a lot in terms of Mateta didn't have, let's say, over 1 XG this game like he normally does kind of thing. That's what it feels like over the last couple. But the one chance that he did have, he took it very nicely. Woltemade. Now, this is the area that I want to discuss because as I said before, this is a game where I thought, listen, Newcastle have an opportunity to improve and put in a performance worthwhile from an attacking point of view. Because I feel like Newcastle defensively have been all right, even though they just conceded 3 to West Ham. But the attacking dynamics just are not clicking. And I was looking at that game and I was like, they don't really have much creativity from midfield. Obviously, the physical presence to that midfield is very good. Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali. But for example, from a creativity point of view, from Joe Linton, you're not really getting anything. But where did Newcastle excel last year? I was thinking, Lewis Hall and Livramento. They were bombing on getting assists, and even if they were not getting assists, they were just involved in the final third play from a creative point of view. And I feel like Newcastle, listen, the fullback pairing that they saw against West Ham was Kraft or at right back because Trippier was out, and Dan Burn at left back. The drop off in, let's say, attacking creative level is crazy, and that's something I think as a Woltemade owner I probably haven't considered. Obviously, Lewis Hall's back on the bench, which is a positive, but I think that's just something we have to consider in terms of we can't expect Newcastle to fully click if they're attacking that, if their, let's say, main creative source are not firing or are not fully fit, which is something that we see. Early sub though from Woltemade was very frustrating. And I'll be honest, the fixtures coming up are probably not the best. They obviously have Brentford next, then they're Manchester City. I think after the Brentford game, I might be looking to take out Woltemade just because obviously minutes are not the most secure in terms of he's not a 90-minute man. And also, I do want to change my team structure. I've been saying this. I do want to move away from the 3-4-3 team structure. I basically want to dead end Woltemade into a 4.2 Mark Gui or something. And just spread that money around in the midfield or in the defense. Because, listen, big at the back is clearly working right now in FPL. Is new in terms of this hasn't really worked out in the past. You're going to have to adapt. So I might have to do that. And Erling Haaland, 13-pointer. And listen, for people that don't know, I posted a clip the other day on TikTok saying, don't captain Gabriel. And after that 12-pointer on Saturday, everyone was coming for me. But listen, TikTok, relax. You have to let the greatest goal scorer the Premier League's ever seen in Erling Haaland play. And listen, what happened when he played? He got a 13-point and outscored Gabriel. Of course, it's only about 1 point, but this just shows the level of Erling Haaland where people thought the environment and circumstances for that game weren't perfect for Erling Haaland. People thought Gabriel, perfect environment for him to get a goal contribution, for him to get a clean sheet. That happened. Yet Erling Haaland still outscored him. And if you guys watched the game, Erling Haaland probably could have had a hat-trick. That just shows the level that Erling Haaland is playing at. And that's why I always say with captaincy, when a player is this good, world class in his position, and playing at the level that he's at right now, the captaincy choice that if you're betting against him, you have to have strong conviction that they're going to outscore Erling Haaland. And as I said, I don't think that was the case with Saka this week, and I don't think that was the case with Gabriel this week, and Erling Haaland outscored them. So I feel very happy with that decision. Listen, Manchester City, very good. The Cherky, Foden, Bernardo Silva. I thought Nico Gonzalez in midfield was phenomenal. Doku as well. Their attacking dynamics were really, really nice. I think City took a gear off in the second half, but first half against Bournemouth, one of the most dominant performances I've seen against Bournemouth in a very long time. And another thing I want to say regarding the Erling Haaland captaincy, Iraola said before the game that he weren't gonna, let's say, have a special game plan to stop Erling Haaland. You saw the amount of space Bournemouth left in behind. Erling Haaland was always going to thrive, especially when his passes in the midfield. For example, a Cherky, a Foden, that can pick those passes out, those balls over the top. Listen, Erling Haaland was having a field day. What a player. What a goal scorer. But let's have a look at my transfer plans for FPL Gameweek 11. Okay, so let's have a look at my transfer plans. And I'll be honest, guys, I think this week might be the week I bench boost. It's probably not the most ideal situation. Joe Roden has Nottingham Forest away. Longstaff, obviously, Nottingham Forest away, even though Nottingham Forest are not the best at corners. So maybe Longstaff could get another assist from a corner. Dubravka has West Ham away after that improved performance by West Ham. Is it the most ideal situation to bench boost? No, but I feel like the longer I keep it, there's no real week that stands out. Game week 16, for example, is not a bad week either. Dubravka has Fulham at home. The Leeds guys have Brentford away. 17, not the best week either. 18, Dubravka has Everton at home. The Leeds guys have Sunderland away. The problem is, the longer we leave it, the more, let's say, fixture pile-up is going to happen during the Christmas period. More chance of rotation, more chance of injuries. So during that period, I don't really want to play it. And I said this to you guys in the previous section. I want to change my team structure completely. I want to move Waltermore down to a 4.5 or Mark Gui 4.2 strike and just reinvest the money elsewhere. Because something that we do know, Liverpool have a nice fixture run coming up very, very soon. For example, game week 12, they're Nottingham Forest at home. 13, West Ham away. 14, Sunderland at home. That is a week, or that period, I might want someone like Virgil van Dijk, for example, who's a potential person that I'm looking at bringing in. I also might want Szoboszlai because I don't really like Cody Gakpo as an FPL option. Just because even when he does score, he doesn't really, let's say, rate well in the bonus point system. I'm not 100% convinced by his minutes. I probably will lean towards Szoboszlai if I was to pick a Liverpool midfielder. And obviously, we have to talk about Salah. Because obviously, Salah is still one of the best players in the Premier League. He got his goal and an improved performance by Liverpool, even though I was surprised by the way Aston Villa set up during that game, because obviously we know how much Liverpool and Slot have talked about how much they struggle with maybe the second balls. And Aston Villa didn't really go long. They still tried to play it. And obviously that could work as well because Liverpool's front three are not the best at, let's say, the pressing dynamics compared to last year. So I do understand why they went that way. But listen, it didn't work out. Liverpool won. Salah got his goal. That's 2 goals now in 2 games. Listen, I'm not going to say I'm going to bring him in. But it's obviously someone that you do have to keep an eye on just because naturally we know the ability Salah has. But for now, I think this week the plan is to roll. That will give me 4 free transfers going into game week 12, where then I can move Baltimore down when he has Manchester City at home. A fixture that I don't see, not necessarily, I can see Newcastle scoring because I don't rate Manchester City defensively as a whole. But at the same time, it's not going to be a high scoring game. So Baltimore down to, let's say, a 4.2 Mark Gui. And then, listen, we have a lot of money then after that to reinvest elsewhere, which is something that I do want to do. For example, I am lacking the Crystal Palace defender. I do want Daniel Munoz in my team somehow. Or Lacroix, even Mark Guay, who again hit definitely. Mark Guay is a defender that I've, let's say, underestimated so far this season. I said I prefer Richards, I prefer Lacroix, but Lacroix and Guay are now the same price. Remember, game week 15, we have to use all our transfers to benefit from the 5 free transfers that we are going to get. So that is just something I am considering for now. Those are my early transfer plans heading into game week 11. I want to roll, but at the same time, listen, anything can pop up. I'm trying to play my bench boost this week. If an injury does pop up, I'm going to play my bench boost this week, so I will make a transfer because listen, as I said, we have to use your transfer. This is something that people have to talk about. Before game week 15, all our transfers have to be 0 to benefit the best as we can from the 5 transfers that we're going to get. But listen, that is how my team is looking like for FPL Game Week 11. Let me know how you guys done in Game Week 10. Let me know how your rank is. I got a small green arrow for now. Listen, Ndiaye, Tarkowski, and Mukiele still left to play. Hopefully they don't haul. But for now, I'm very, very happy with this week. Let me know how you guys done. Make sure you guys like the video as well.